So we're at a crossroads in the credit card game, and if you take a hard look, the decline of Chase is actually at the center of everything. See, there are still a lot of people today who look at Chase and see viable, powerful credit cards and tons of them. However, if you study this closely, there are actually cracks that are really starting to show. And I think the image that I'll present to you of Chase today in 2025 is a lot worse than what you had in your head. In this video, I'll share with you how the little changes when stacked together have actually become a massive problem inside of Chase, what's still good about the brand and its cards, and where I think this all goes next. Let's dive right in. All right, let's get the bad news out of the way first before looking at the good and then towards the future. There are 4 specific strategic moves that Chase has made in the last few months that by themselves don't seem to be that big of a deal. However, when you put it together, it shows a definite shift in the way Chase is going, and I'm worried for the future of the cards. Let's first take a look at the United card refresh. This is something that may have gone completely unnoticed. In fact, a lot of people associate United credit cards with United Airlines and not the connection that it has with Chase, which issues the lineup of 4 cards. However, Chase is just as integral as United Airlines in creating the cards, the benefits on them, and the styles that they take on. When Chase updated the United card lineup early in 2025, they were testing the waters to see how their fans would react to an American Express coupon book higher annual fee sort of approach. Now, United cards had always been really solid in the value they gave. The Explorer card was a good intro card that offered free checked bags, a few United perks including lounge access passes, and it cost a very reasonable $95 after your $0 introductory fee in the first year expired. Even at the top of the lineup with the United Club card at $525 was still really competitively priced and was a glorified lounge card that gave you some of those premium United perks as well. However, March 2025 comes along and the refresh hits. Look at the different annual fee changes in all of the cards, and supposedly according to Chase and United, these annual fee increases were more than justified with the massive slew of benefits coming your way. I'm not going to cover the benefits line by line. I made a separate video for people considering United credit cards to give them the full breakdown there, which you can watch after this one if you fit into that category. But briefly, just looking on your screen, I think you'll see that the benefits come in waves, and there are tons of them packed into these cards. That sounds like a good thing, right? So what's the problem, you may ask? Well, the problem is that Chase packed tons of lifestyle benefits into United Airlines credit cards. They tried to take cards that were once completely based around perks for flying United Airlines into just lifestyle and travel perks, which means for people hoping to get their money back, well, they have to use United Airlines cards in all sorts of different ways that may not be related to United Airlines. Many of these perks don't directly give you benefits, they trigger credits that have an expiring time limit to be used in, or they're broken down into ways where the credits are divided into really small increments that you're constantly keeping track of. Essentially, Chase took the United cards and tried to make them lifestyle cards that you have to put a full focus on if you want to include in your lineup. To the casual passerby, you may not notice a big difference, but all of these benefits are structured for Chase and United to win, aka profit over the customer, and for it to be harder for the customer to get value out of it at the end. That's just one change though. I think you'll start to see how this trend bleeds into the rest of the Chase philosophy. Okay, let's address it head on in problem number 2, which lies within the new refreshed Chase Sapphire Reserve. Chase launched the new Sapphire Reserve, and amongst a ton of changes to the card, the headliner probably lies within the annual fee, which increased an astounding $245, a 45% increase from the old card to the new card, and it now leads the way in terms of annual fees for premium travel credit cards. Now, I'll tell you where this falls apart, but I don't just want this to be about me. I reached out to the community, and within 24 hours, you guys responded, and over 1,400 people voted, with 76% saying they don't prefer the new version of the card. If you think back to what I just referenced with United and how Chase turned a lineup of airline cards into lifestyle cards, well, they took that concept and they brought it to a whole new level with their Sapphire Reserve. There are many experience credits packed within this card. The edit, dining credits, StubHub, Apple credits, Lyft credits, and Peloton credits. In my opinion, the problem isn't in the entertainment value of those credits. A lot of those brands are cool. People use StubHub, people use Apple all the time. Fancy restaurants, nice hotels. That's a really intriguing vision for a premium travel credit card. However, the problem is in how the card is structured. The underlying idea of these credits, as you can see how they're divided up in terms of their max redemption at one time, is to break them up monthly or semi-annually and put so many restrictions on them that once you're trapped inside the card, it's actually really difficult to use these benefits you thought you were getting. As you can see from 2 viewers of the channel that shared their thoughts in the comments, they agree with the same sentiment, with the DoorDash credit being called psycho behavior, and another viewer calling the card simply complicated. Again, Chase isn't offering just a premium product. They want their product to be the only product in your wallet because that's the only way you can possibly get close to your money's worth. Now, again, this change by itself maybe wouldn't be a massive problem. However, point number 3, Chase changes to their own travel portal, is a massive shift away from something that made Chase truly great. Previously, Chase had always been known as the issuer that offered the strongest point currency. In fact, that's why I got into Chase with many of their different products, because no matter what, whether I was in a financial situation where I was hoping to travel or I just needed cash back in my life, I could always rely on a steady, strong value for my Chase Ultimate Rewards points. The best value, in my opinion, was the 1.25x multiplier with your Sapphire Preferred, or the guaranteed 1.5x multiplier with your Sapphire Reserve for those domestic hotel and flight redemptions. That's sometimes the easiest and very best way to make really good use of your hard-earned Chase points. However, Chase completely wiped that away and replaced it with, again, something that sounds good, but in reality isn't very strong: their new Points Booster feature. Does this sound familiar? Well, unfortunately to me it does. Let's look at exactly how Point Booster works. I tested this out in many different situations, but I just want to give you one quick example. Here's a flight from Atlanta to San Diego, just one way. Normal flights return all of the options where airlines are competing on cash price. I have a Sapphire Preferred and still receive 1.25x value on my points. However, that will soon be reduced to just a cent per point in value on flight redemptions, with the potential to get boosted point value on some of those premium cabin seats. The hope is that the new Points Booster would give some great redemptions. However, Points Booster flights are only returning results from United Airlines, which may not even have the cheapest flights to begin with, so you're overpaying for a quote-unquote better redemption through the Points Booster, and it seems that Points Booster flights are severely limited to only business and potentially first-class flights. That means for the vast majority of us who aren't looking to fly business or first class on most of our flights, well, we're forced into worse value than ever before, and Points Booster becomes completely irrelevant. Finally, the last major problem lies within the Chase sign-up bonus rules. There are 2 issues here. First, Chase totally changed the 48-month waiting period that would previously allow you to get another sign-up bonus on your Sapphire card. It used to be that every 4 years or 48 months, you could apply for a new Sapphire card after downgrading your previous one and receive a welcome offer. That was great, and if you played a 2-player strategy like my wife and I do, approximately every 2 years, each of you could apply for a Sapphire card and keep the points flowing for vacations and travel into your Chase accounts. This has now been replaced by a once per lifetime Sapphire sign-up bonus, meaning that if you've gotten a sign-up bonus from a specific Sapphire, it now looks like you'll never ever be able to be eligible for a sign-up bonus on that card again. Second, Chase introduced their own version of a pop-up geo. Well, they'll look at each individual customer, see how profitable you could potentially be for them, and then decide based on that whether they'd like to even offer you a sign-up bonus for any of their cards. This is very similar to American Express, and again, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but a concept Chase has pulled from elsewhere, integrated into their own system, and is again a disappointment for credit card fans. Now, at this point, you're probably feeling pretty discouraged. In fact, when I was creating this video, that's exactly where I was, and I've accumulated quite a bunch of Chase cards and was looking at them honestly a little differently. However, in fairness, there are 4 things about Chase that still stand out above its peer group, and I do want to highlight those in today's video so you can get the complete picture for yourself and make your own judgments on the brand and potentially the future. The first good thing that we can still rely on is that the Chase trifecta, one of the most affordable and powerful credit card trifectas, still remains. That's the Chase Freedom Unlimited, which is your catch-all everyday credit card, the Chase Freedom Flex, which, while temporarily at the time of recording this video, has been pulled from online applications. All data points and sources inside of Chase are saying that this isn't permanent and it's just going to be a temporary pull from online applications. So the Freedom Flex, with its high potential earning categories, is still in play. And of course, the $95 Sapphire Preferred, which gives you access to transfer partners and Chase's travel portal, while less powerful, still an option for redeeming. Even with the list of bad changes I just laid out, for a lot of people, you can still recommend to them to get the Chase trifecta, and they'll have a really solid credit card setup that I think most would agree will be very happy with how that will work for them. The next thing that we can still mostly be happy about is the intrinsic value that Chase Ultimate Rewards points still hold today. 2 things can be true at once. One, the negative that I said, the elimination of the guaranteed 1.25x on the Sapphire Preferred and the 1.5x on the Sapphire Reserve for in-portal redemptions, that's a tragic hit and cannot be ignored. However, these points still retain value better than a lot of the other brands, although now the gap is definitely less. If you look at the chart I laid out here for different redemption methods between Chase, American Express, and Capital One, you'll see that Chase generally still has the most well-rounded guaranteed value within their system. Too many people still get American Express credit cards or Capital One cards that earn miles and make redemptions unknowingly redeeming for much less value than they really should be getting with their points. With Chase, at least the floor is much higher for your base level redemptions. Additionally, we have to point out that Chase transfer partners, well, those have remained untouched, and for just $95 with the Sapphire Preferred, you can access this entire potentially very powerful list. Chase transfer partners are such a big deal here that for a lot of you, you'll see the loss of the portal multipliers and say, hey, that didn't matter to me anyways because I was always going to send my Chase points out of the network into one of the valuable transfer partners. World of Hyatt is still a transfer partner legend, and there's so much value for resorts and all-inclusives there. Virgin Atlantic is a great fit across many issuers for economy all the way up to business class flights from the US over to Europe, and you can still get some decent value with your direct transfers out to United or to Southwest, or for the bargain hunters out there, the British Airways to booking American Airlines flights, or the Virgin Atlantic to booking Delta flights partnership there. Finally, flexibility. Chase cards are still unique in the fact that many of them and the many card families that they have always seem to have a downgrade option to 0. This is really important for beginners and even for those of us building a really big wallet. And good flexibility allows you to take an annual fee credit card and determine at the point that it no longer returns great value to you, call Chase and product change that down to the base level $0 annual fee card and not have to take the credit score hit that comes with canceling a credit card. So with all of this being said, weighing the bad against the good aspects that still remain, where do I stand and what do I think the future of Chase looks like? Personally, as you may be able to tell, Chase took a big step backwards. First of all, it was a killer, losing the boosted point value with the Preferred and the Reserve card for the point multiplier redemption. I could be proven wrong, but I just don't think the points booster is going to come into play effectively for many people, and I see it as more of eye candy and actually fairly useless for real life redemptions. My second biggest problem is that this fundamentally hurts beginners. There were so many things with the old Chase that made it easy to get value, easy to redeem for value, and easy to have a good experience. All of these changes work back against beginners and its positioning to make Chase and their partners more powerful and make more money. And that is, of course, at the expense of you and I and the rest of the viewers in this community. Finally, and this is maybe the most disappointing one personally, is that Chase now just feels like everyone else. They've made their premium credit cards a massive coupon book that you have to track with super high annual fees. Their portal went from being special and unique to just something very bland and similar to every other issuer's. I personally value so much the choice to go to different issuers work with their strengths and understand their weaknesses, and pick what I need for my travel strategy at the time I'm getting a card. As JJ Drive 2 commented on the post, hey, if I wanted an Amex, I'd get an Amex. However, maybe the most interesting thing that no one is talking about is what comes next. Look at this picture and tell me one of the first things that you notice. For me, it's two cards with a massive $700 annual fee gap. Chase has now created a hole in their own lineup and in the market that I think they're going to be working really quickly to fill. That could be done in one of two ways, and I think we should be prepared for either. First of all, the Sapphire Preferred could be refreshed. That $95 is simply too much value compared to the massive Sapphire Reserve annual fee, and they could look at the Sapphire Preferred and move it up to about a $300 to $350 card, meant to compete more with the Amex Gold or some of those other mid-tier cards. Of course, that means more credits, more benefits, and it'd be very interesting to see how the Sapphire Preferred looked with a completely revamped version of it. However, Chase pursuing that change would still leave a massive problem. They would no longer have a beginner entry-level card into their travel ecosystem. That more leads me to think that Chase will create a completely new card meant to fill that middle gap between the $95 and $795 price points they already have. Could this be something very similar to what they did with United in the United Quest card, filling that middle ground slot? I think that's a template that I could see Chase pursuing, and again, could be even more exciting because then we wouldn't lose the value in the Sapphire Preferred and would see a completely new card for the first time in a number of years from Chase. So all in all, it's needless to say that there have been a ton of changes, but at least I hope this video helped you realize two things. One, see the big picture of all the small changes that Chase put together month after month recently and how that's completely changed what they used to be. I hope to re-emphasize what still makes Chase good, and if those things stand out and work for you, why Chase could still potentially be an option for your credit card lineup. If you like seeing credit card content from this perspective, please consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.